stream thing messed up, which is why I'm taking a second to come on. Oh no. Why is it being weird? Is the stream still on? Let me know in the chat. It might have ended. I don't know. Let me know if you can hear this right now, because I don't know what's happening in my back end at the moment. Here, I'm gonna pop on. Normally I would like to have a lot of I would like to have a much better setup, but let me know if you can see me right now, because I actually legit don't know if the stream is working. This is being weird as all hell. My back end, like, I literally set the... okay, it looks like I am streaming. Okay, we're doing fine. That was really weird, because, like, legitimately my back end was just, like, it just said, oh, the stream can't go live. I'm like, but I'm already live. What happened? And then it just died, and then it won't let me, like, re-enter the stream? So, we'll figure out... the problem will probably end up being, I don't know how to end the stream? Okay, now it's letting me... Weird. Anyways, hello, everybody. We're live. We're good. The stream was being weird. But anyways, hope everyone's doing well. Hello, everybody. Heart to everybody. I hope everyone's doing well. Hello, NCC 1701 Chris, Lewis. Good to see you. Adrenaline. Aeronaut, good to see you. Sapphire Sunset, good to see you. Dominic Hammer, good to see you. Miss Wicked Wolf. Super Desi, of course. Laura, Cora. Logan Mansion Gaming. Catsill, good to see you all. I just came in, I thought you were talking about your back end, sorry. Yeah, I mean, I'm always happy to talk about my back end, you know? It's not a problem. I have no problem talking about my back, you know, the back end of YouTube. In my back end. It's my back end, you know? It's fine. Sorry, everybody. But yeah, I hope everyone's doing well. I hope everyone's having a good day. I hope everyone's hanging out and having fun. But yeah, no, I'm streaming early today because number one, I was just filming for a thing, partially why I look all nice in my vest, and I have all this crap over there going on. And I figured I look nice, and then I also, in about an hour, I have an interview for a video that I'm doing. So I figured I would, because I'm doing a few interviews for this big video. So I figured I would, you know, I was thinking about doing the stream later on, but it's like, well, I could just do the stream now, and it'll be done between the time I do my interview and when I'm done filming, and it'll just work out scheduling wise. I can still hang out with everybody and still have a good time. So I hope everyone's doing good. I hope everyone's having a good time. And yeah, so for those of you who are new, by the way, if you're just popping into the stream, just coming in to have fun, generally what this stream is I just hang out for about an hour or so. Oh, is my volume a bit low? I can turn up my volume if you need me to. Let me see if I can pop this up a little bit here. Oh, is that not? Yeah, okay, that's the right one. Cool. Let me know if you need me to pop up my volume more. But yeah, I figured I would hang out for, about an hour. Anyways, this is the stream where we hang out for about an hour. I chat with all of you about whatever you all want to talk about. If you want to have topics that you want me to discuss, I am happy to discuss them. Questions, things like that. If you have super chats, that is appreciated because they help pay the bills. And the algorithm has definitely not been friendly the past few weeks. It has honestly been one of the lowest months algorithm-wise. So super chats are appreciated, but by no means required. But if you do them, I appreciate them very, very, very much. Anyways, also, yeah, someone said Tendy Cut. I got the Tendy Cut over in the corner there. She's just chilling creepily. I would put her in the frame, but then she just like, isn't it kind of creepy just to have her there? Just like creepily staring in the background, right? Tell me if she moves. If she moves, you might have a problem. Anyways, favorite Nesquik flavor. I don't even think I've had Nesquik. I don't think I've had Nesquik in like years. I'm like legitimately trying to think of the last time I had Nesquik. I definitely haven't had it anytime recently. And so if I had to pick a flavor, it would probably be like chocolate. It's literally would just be chocolate. Yeah, that's why she's staring at us from the corner. Oh, bisexual telly girl. Hopefully get some sleep if you need some sleep, my friend. Sending you love. Get some sleep if you need it. Yeah, YouTube has not been friendly to anyone right now. Yeah, I mean, there's some people I'm seeing doing really well. It's that, it's that constant thing. Sorry, I'm just checking. Oh, that's someone else. That is someone accepting our rehearsal stuff for identities. But yeah, no, yeah, it's weird because it leads to kind of an imposter syndrome in a lot of people because you're like, I mean, if I'm ranting about my own insecurities at the moment, it just leads to this level of imposter syndrome where you sort of like see the algorithm not doing well. It's like, is this something that I'm doing? And of course, I am certain that my like algorithm level has not been great because I like, as much as I love my Star Trek videos, they're like long Star Trek videos. And, those are very niche, and then being long, they're niche upon niche. So, I haven't made like super algorithm friendly content, which is why I have a few videos coming out that'll hopefully do much better in the algorithm. But it's also just sort of like, there's numerous other factors besides like your own videos and stuff that goes into it and things like that. And then my other insecurity at the moment too is writing things, is I've been trying to write about different videos, like trying to write about like different topics, and the topics just become so big. Because, I just to let everyone know, a topic that I'm working on right now is a video that I'm really proud of, but it was started off being like, it was supposed to be a really simple video, is a lot of you, oh, Kyle, well, welcome. I'm glad you jumped into the stream, my friend. But yeah, no, for those of you who don't know, probably some of you have got it if you were, why am I blanking on words right now? If you were, like jumping in the channel like a few months ago, I remember I got a lot of comments. There was a very anti-trans propaganda film that was putting out a bunch of ads on a bunch of like trans-focused sites. So like One Topic at a Time, I know, talked about getting these ads. I know like Vera Wild, my friend over at Council of Geeks, she got a bunch of these ads as well on her content. And so I figured, well, why not actually like look at that film and discuss some of the bullshit that it was spewing. It was definitely, I mean, it was very clearly a propaganda film, not exactly in the same vein, but in the same sort of spirit as Matt Walsh's What is a Woman. So I decided to go look at that film, and oh boy, I was just gonna be like, this will be an easy film to like watch and just like debunk, because I'm sure it's full of just easy propaganda to debunk, and it's probably a lazy version of Matt Walsh's film. And oh boy, it's a lot. It's a very fucked up film in a lot of ways. And so I'm going to be doing a whole video on that, and because of that, it kind of became this much different, it kind of became this much bigger discussion that I did not intend. I thought it was gonna be like, yeah, this movie sucks, here's why. And it's gonna become this like much more intersecting discussion video on how ultimately these anti-trans narratives work in conjunction with a lot of right-wing narratives together, and how they kind of all uphold themselves and lead into conspiracy theory spaces and very cultish-like spaces based off of like anti-trans narratives. And so it's a very complicated topic. That's now become a really long video with a lot of interviews. We're going to talk about anti-Semitism, all this, like, it's a whole thing. I mean, like, one of my favorite parts of the film, favorite parts, quote unquote, is like the end of the film, they literally bring in Jennifer Bilek, who, if many of you know, she's like an anti-trans, gender-critical feminist, quote unquote, who often likes to like say, there's these millionaires funding the anti-trans movement, and then just points at Jewish people and says, oh, there's nothing, I don't know any reason why they happen to be Jews. It's just, I'm just pointing out the fact that they're funding the anti-trans movement. Nothing to do with them being Jewish. And then also points to Nazis to go have our audience go watch. So yeah, that's literally how the film, like, where it goes. So yeah, the film warrants a lot of discussion. Not the least of which, too, is that the film weaponizes the story of a trans man. And really really desecrates the memory of this trans man. So yeah, it's a very disgusting film generally. So that's what my video is going to be on, that I'm working on. That'll be a very long video because my videos can never be short, but that's my anxiety with the algorithm right now, is like, I wish I could make short videos, but the topics that I end up being interested in, and also my neurodiverse brain, makes it very difficult to talk about that. So yeah, so that's where I'm kind of at in my career at the moment, of over worrying about stuff. Anyways, I ranted about it. A bunch, but I missed a super chat in here. Super Desi, heart to you. Thank you so much for the super chat, my friend. You said, it's almost like the algorithm is purposely built to induce anxiety. I know, what a shock. The algorithm inducing anxiety, who would have thought that that was a thing? That the algorithm was made to induce anxiety in people and make them constantly want to put out content. Yeah, it sucks. It's not great. So yeah, no, it's never very fun. Oh yeah, Logan Mansion Gaming, you said, I find the term "what is a woman" to not only be transphobic but also racist and colonial. Yeah, I mean that's what I'm talking about in my video on what is a woman, and then I'm gonna get into even further depth on this video I'm working on now. Is that, you know, the whole idea, the concept of what is a woman, the question itself, you know, that at least in the ways that Matt Walsh uses it and others use it to like be anti-trans is based out of like racist and colonialist ideas, right? Like the whole, like there's a video to be made. There's a documentary to be made that was be an earnest curiosity about like looking at the history of womanhood and how womanhood has been built up in our society today, why we think of womanhood a certain way, because the way womanhood has been built up in our society, you know, originally in terms of Western societies, you know, it came out of this idea of private property and people can own things, and sort of this created this division through gender of like women being at the home, you know, men going outside and doing the work and labor and owning things, and they kind of own a woman, and so you could sort of like hold women so they could like reproduce for you, and you keep like your property in your family line sort of nonsense. And then when these European countries went out to colonize other countries, they needed to justify why they were colonizing other countries and why they were forcing people into slavery and using people for labor and dehumanizing them and killing them and pushing them out of the land, all of these things. And so often what they would do is use gender as a way to justify that by like saying like, oh, white women, European women need to be kept at home and safe and protected because they're weak and need protection from these beasts of burden. And the women that they have there, they aren't real women. Like look at the African women, they're voluptuous and their bodies are bigger, which means like they aren't like the petite women we want to have here, and they sort of changed their whole body norms and stuff, and then created all like pseudoscience and stuff like that to, you know, eugenics and phenology and all of these things to try and justify all of this bullshit that they had sort of built upon layer, decades upon decades, centuries upon centuries on top of each other. And gender is not the only way they did that, but it was a major aspect of that. So like all of these things interconnect, right? So when Matt Walsh discusses what is a woman, and he uses it in his propaganda film, like the question is meant to be specifically anti-trans, but it is based off of all these colonialization ideas, racist ideas, patriarchal ideas, which is ultimately why his film ends with like him looking at his wife and saying, "You deserve to be in the home." Like that's literally how his film ends. So yeah, it's a whole mess of stuff. So yeah, so that is a very interesting kind of discussion, and I get more into it in the video that I'm working on now. So if you want to support that, please do. I'm missing a few other super chats here. Mr. Joshua, heart to you, said, continue your slacking off on, you're the best at what you do. Oh, well, thank you, Mr. Joshua. I appreciate you so much. You are the best, and I adore you. Mwah, mwah, mwah. Oh, yeah, Super Desi. I get into the thing about anti-Semitism. It's much older than Nazi movement or even fascistic movements, which really causes me sorrow. It's the evil that lends itself to yet more evil. Yes. Yeah, no, anti-Semitism is a much older thing, too. Like, going back to, I mean, it goes even further than that, but, like, blood libel stuff, which, again, it's all layered on top of each other, right? Like, a lot of the stuff we see today, it's like, layered upon layered upon layered. Like, Nazis are building upon blood libel things that built upon, like, other stuff, like, what, like, Western European, like medieval period time sort of things. So, like, all of these things sort of build upon each other over decades and centuries. And so it's really hard to, like, unravel it all, because what you're trying to do when you're trying to, like, discuss bigotries and where bigotries come from. And it's kind of like, this is where my anxiety as a creator comes from, right? Where it's like, you kind of like trace it back through all of these things. And the reason that it's important to like trace the history back is, number one, to know where it comes from, but on like an emotional level, and on a level of like, how do we understand we're fighting these things, and like a way to generate like a sense of like, how do we take these things down? The reason that you trace these things back through time is to showcase that they had a beginning. that they are not, that number one, they aren't based in anything other than trying to build a narrative that props up, you know, a certain, you know, aspect of society, Western European civilization, that sort of thing. But you trace it back to then you see that something has a beginning. Because once you know that something has a beginning, you know that it can end. Because if this idea that all of this stuff builds itself off of like, this is natural, this is normal, this is the way things have to be, this is the way things are, this is just nature, this is just God, this is just whatever, right? And so if you trace it back through history and say, no, this actually had a very real beginning with very real intentions to create ideas of race and do all of these things, then you can say, oh, if it's a made-up bullshit thing, we can actually end it. It's not the way the world works. It's not how things actually are. But things like, you know, this is like why I highly recommend books like this. By the way, I just had it in reach because I'm using it to research stuff. But like, I highly recommend books like this because it talks about all of those things and how those things all sort of build up upon each other and things like that. Just checking something real quick because I got a ding on my phone. Anyways, so thank you for letting me do a ramble on the history of gender. By the way, Canithius, heart to you. Thank you so much for your super chat. I appreciate you very much, my friend. You said, here's $5 to support trans people. Don't deserve to live in a place of hate and bigotry. Church should be held accountable for their actions. Yes, very much so. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I mean, I don't really know much more to say other than agreed in so many ways, shapes, and forms, you know? Let's see. Oh, someone asked for an Identities update. Yeah, Identities. For those of you who don't know, Identities is the film that I'm working on. That is science fiction film. You know, we have a bunch of cool cast and crew and everybody. And then got sadly delayed because of bureaucracy stuff with SAG and other things that I spoke about in my video, that if you want more dives into that, you can go check out that for my frustrations there. But long story short, we are actually going to be filming. We're going to be filming at the end of October, so we're moving up production right now. So we're going through all of the stuff. We finally have official SAG approval to film during the strike and do interim filming as well. So that finally got all approved. Its own headache sort of thing. So yeah, so we're all good to film under the strike. You know, not associated with the AMTPT stuff. So what I'm really excited about with the filming right now, which I'm like very, very pumped about, is, you know, one of the benefits of the filming getting delayed. Like, I'm frustrated by that for numerous reasons, but the thing that we were doing is we're building a science fiction set. And I don't want to spoil too much because it's like part of the story, but we were building a set. And one aspect of it that I thought was really important, we were sort of like, we found a way to do it, but right before filming, we kind of learned, like, it'll work, but it'll be a little bit difficult, and we don't exactly love it. So I was like, all right, we'll deal with it as it comes, you know, we'll go for it. But now that we are delayed, we actually have more time in order to be able to actually do something really cool and do something do something really nicer for it. So I think we've come up with, you know, my set designer, who is Dr. Aaron's husband, who Dr. Aaron, my producer, her husband is the set designer, and he is looking into like different ways to do it. So we're going to find out next week what the exact cost and everything is, but I think it's going to be kind of fun. I'm very excited about it. So I was upset to hear how the strike impacted. I mean, it's important to understand, Leyline, heart to you, by the way, appreciate you. It's important to understand, like, the whole goal. I mean, the thing with the film is we always wanted to make sure that we, like, stayed within strike rules. You know, I have frustrations with SAG in terms of the bureaucracy and the way I was treated specifically in this situation. And I've made those known. But ultimately, at the end of the day, the goal with the film is to support people whose voices don't get supported by these systems, right? And so when we knew that the strikes were coming, with the film, we reached out to every member of the cast and every member of the crew, and we made very clear that, like, you are, like, we believe that this production is something worth making right now, because it showcases that we can make independent productions outside of the studio system with people who are from the studio system, but saying that we can prop up the voices that don't necessarily get centralized in the studio system. You know, so all of the actors and a lot of the crew work in Hollywood. And so it's sort of like saying, like, we can make our own things right now. But that being said, if anyone is uncomfortable making something like this during the strikes, making something like this, you know, while we are doing this thing. If anyone's uncomfortable, let us know. We set up a system where it could be anonymous, but we said, like, if anyone's uncomfortable, you know, we will stop production. And, you know, people said they wanted to make it. So, you know, I am feeling very comfortable in terms of, like, the strike stuff and, you know, and making sure we're not, like, you know, doing any scab work or anything, because we're not taking any jobs away from people. So it's an important thing to always keep in mind, to be present of. But I think, like, the whole goal of the film, both in terms of the story of it and in terms of, like, what we're doing with it, is to be able to showcase, like, we can make things our own. I think we need that more than ever, right? Like, you know, if anything that is, like, shown me in these, by the way, I see your other super chats, my friends. I think, like, the thing for me that, you know, I'm seeing with, do I have the book? I don't have the book here. Like, you look at Hollywood, you look at a lot of these things that we're seeing right now. A lot of it is just these systems starting to fail. And fascism itself is just the system, like, trying to reassert itself through violent means. Right? But, like, all of these systems are failing people. That's the major problem. Hollywood is failing people because it's all about giving money. Like, people at the top are trying to hoard the money. We're overly concerned about that and not the things that they're making or the people that they're ultimately supposed to be serving. The artists, the creators, the fans, those sort of things. They've lost sight of that, and they lost sight of what these stories are supposed to tell about humanity. They only just see the numbers. And so for me, I think it's really important right now to, like, say, like, no, we can build things that are on our own terms, and also smaller scale things too. Like, you know, everyone's like, I'm not trying, I don't really, you know, if someone came to me and said, Jess, you can make a Star Trek movie for billions of dollars, like, sure, I would do that. But, like, honestly, the more and more I've learned about stuff and the more I've learned about myself as a storyteller, it's like, I don't want to tell these big, huge stories. Like, I want it to be seen by as many people as possible because I think the story's important. But I'm not trying to do it to make money or to, you know, get the highest platform. I'm doing it because it's the art that I want to make. And I think the art and what I have to say is important, and I want people to see it and to understand it, but I'm not doing it for that big platform, right? And so I think it's important to showcase to people that you can make art outside of these big, huge systems, and that are only worried about those at the top, and that you can do it for the people that you want to make it for, and you don't have to do it for all of this money. You don't have to do it but requiring all this money to make it, or wanting all this money on the back end, because I'm not doing this to make money. More than anything, I'm probably going to lose money. Like, Nebula's funded a significant amount of the film, but there's stuff where I'm just like, I'm putting my money forward to make this because I want to be able to make it the way that I want to make it. So anyways, I've been ranting about my film so enough. Let me just heart to this. Neil Lawrence, heart to you. Thank you so much for your super chat, my friend. You said, I'm on episode 37 of the Jumpgate podcast. Loving it. Your trolling of Vera and Spoilerman is wonderful catching up slowly. Yeah, I adore that. We paused Jumpgate for now because of the ongoing strikes, which is one of the ways of making sure that we're, you know, following strike guidelines, because, like, rewatch podcasts are not, you know, allowed under the strike. So stopping that. But, at least rewatch podcasts of Struck Productions, which is why we're doing a podcast about The Prisoner now, because that's not a Struck production because it was made in Britain. So we're talking about The Prisoner right now, which, by the way, if you're talking about anti-fascist works of art, The Prisoner, freaking amazing. But Jumpgate was a lot of fun, and we'll get back to it when we can. But the one thing that for those of you who don't know, if you don't listen to the podcast, at the end of every episode, because we're talking about a show that has a lot of like ongoing storylines, we do a spoiler minute, because I've seen the show and Vera hasn't. So I will, like, talk for about a minute about spoilers and things that I haven't seen, that she hasn't seen in the show, that she's not listening to. And so she'll take off her headphones while we're recording. And during the recording, I hired one of the actors from the show. I want to make sure I'm not going to say the show name, but I want to make sure I say the actor's name correctly, because he has an interesting name. Peter Jurassic. So Peter Jurassic from the show that we were watching, I paid him via I forget what, the Cameo app. So I paid him to do a cameo, and I put up his video during the spoiler minute. So Vera had no idea, like, was like, wait, is that the actor from the show that we're on, like, in the Zoom call right now? And then as soon as she put her headphones back on, I turned off the video. So it was a video just like he was just saying nice things about her, but she couldn't hear that, which was very, very funny. So it was just it was a very funny video to, like, list a fun prank to play on her, because it was doing something nice to her, but she couldn't hear it. So it was very fun. Let's see. Super Desi, heart to you. I'll toss you another $5 Monday as my 54th. Oh, happy 54th birthday, my friend. Super Desi, you're amazing. When we, get those sweet IHOP senior menu discounts. Get those senior member discounts. You do it. You do it. That's what we're all here for. That's what we're all just trying to get the senior menu discount. Once you get there, you've won. You've won life. But no, that's amazing. Congratulations on your 54th birthday, Super Desi. Sending you all the love, my friend. Mwah. Let's see. Oh yeah, I saw that you and Phoebe did a show together, Miranda. I'm looking forward to listening to it. Let's see. Black Cover, are you involved with the new Drawn to Trek? Technically, I'm not involved in it, but I am going to be on their review for episode 4 of this season, which was my for those of you who don't know, Drawn to Trek is a Star Trek podcast that talks specifically about the animated aspects of the franchise, which the animated aspects of the franchise, Prodigy, the original, the animated series, and Lower Decks are not currently being struck. Though I will say animated folks do also deserve better treatment and unionization as well. Thankfully, Titmouse, which is the company that that runs the Lower Decks, the animators there did unionize, so hell yeah. And Mike McMahon has been tweeting. Mike McMahon, the creator of Lower Decks, has been tweeting in support of that, which makes me feel very good about Lower Decks. But yeah, so those shows are not struck, so I'm going to be going on the Drawn to Trek podcast to talk about my favorite show, Star Trek Lower Decks, and in particular next week's episode, because I won't spoil for people, but next week's episode, legitimately, I've gotten a chance to see it early, and it is very, very good. It is probably my favorite episode of Lower Decks. For to be fair, reasons very specific to me. Very specific to me. Like I think like if you're talking objectively, I think Weege Dooge is the best Lower Decks episode that they've done, or close, or one of them arguably. This episode for me is my favorite, even more so than that episode, for reasons very much relating to me. And I won't spoil that because it's great to watch. But next week's episode, adore, and so I'll be on Drawn to Trek podcast to talk about that. But I'm technically not like involved with them, but I am going to be on a couple times. So Aronach, it is the episode that has the trans vibes. It is very much the episode that has the trans vibes. It is definitely the trans vibes episode. I guess that'll be the spoiler. So kitchen up here, making sure. Lessons learned, heart to you. You said, got to say, I hope Lower Decks will stay away from the evil AI storylines. I will say, I did like last night's episode, because last night's episode did shy away from the evil AI storyline, which I did enjoy. Having seen a couple episodes ahead of this season, I will say you should not worry about that. I think they do talk about artificial, like in terms of like actual artificial intelligence in a very interesting way, because that's been a problem I think with modern Star Trek generally. They've again, without naming specific shows, especially the live action ones, like they have been very much like almost every single show and almost every single season has been about the evils of artificial intelligence, and I understand where that anxiety comes from. In a lot of senses, it comes from our fear of machine learning today, which is distinct from artificial intelligence. And you see that being played out today in terms of like people, part of the reasons that people are striking, the writers and actors are striking, is because of machine learning and the use of machine learning tools in art. And so you can understand where a lot of that anxiety comes from, and then also an anxiety around like, machines coming to kill us, which is its own whole other discussion in terms of what that actually means in our media. But I am glad, and Lower Decks kind of played into that with a lot of its characters, like Agamus, Peanut Hamper, Badgie as well. And I think this season is a little bit better about deconstructing that idea, as well as and I think it's important that Star Trek does show a more positive understanding of artificial intelligence. I mean, look at Data. Data was like a great look at artificial intelligence, because the distinction is like machine learning today is a very big problem that we need to be worried about how it's used and how it's going to be used to try to force people to, be kicked out of work and automate more things and leaving people without access to be able to pay their bills and things like that. And capitalism and ging, I guess, is the best way to put that. But if we sort of have a longer term view of things and actually talk about what it means for artificial intelligence to exist, which again, distinct from machine learning, it is important to try to talk about like how we view others with empathy, and how we sort of think about sentiences and different ways of thinking about the world in a hopeful way, and in a caring way, and an empathetic way, and a willingness to see others as people before we immediately dehumanize them and use them for labor or whatever. Kind of going back to the colonialization idea. You know, that's what Data's storyline in Measure of a Man was about, right? So I think it's important that Star Trek has that sort of long-term view. With that being said, discussions of machine learning and the problems of machine learning are very much open, I think, for discussion. In fact, I actually think the best episode of Star Trek to discuss that problem is the episode of, it's not necessarily specifically about machine learning, but it kind of is the episode, oh my god, I forget what the episode title was called, but it was the episode in season 1 about buffer time. Because if you remember that episode Buffer Time of Star Trek Lower Decks, the whole aspect of that episode was that the senior staff of the ship was like, stop it, we're gonna measure every single moment of your time. You're never gonna get a chance to get some downtime. You always have to like get onto your next task. We're gonna like time you and everything. And that kind of goes to what machine learning is ultimately kind of being in some of the ways, not all aspects, like this sort of like viewing people as machines, and viewing people as like, we automate all of these things, and we can just automate all of this stuff and just force people to do things on this timetable, or like saying you have to do it. Like, look at even Amazon workers who have to, like, in their cars, like they only have so much time to be able to get all the deliveries done, forcing them to pee in bottles and things like that. And so ultimately I think that episode was probably one of the better discussions on adjacent themes to machine learning and things like that, that, you know, is kind of dovetailing with our discussions today. It's not exactly machine learning in that episode, but it kind of goes along with those ideas, versus artificial intelligence, which is a different thing. We call AI today AI, but it's not AI. So, sorry, I missed a couple super chats here. Let me just make sure I get back to them. Hard to you, Carlisle the Cinephile said, have you played Baldur's Gate 3 yet? If not, any chance you'd be down for streaming it? I have not, by the way, and sending you 2 hearts, my friend Carlisle. Let's see. So I have not played Baldur's Gate 3 yet, because there's many games that I want to play before then. You know, I want to play The Life of P, which I'm very excited for. Mortal Kombat as well. So Baldur's Gate I do want to play, but it's like a big game. And the big game I'm playing right now, just because it's familiar, is Starfield. I will say, I have a lot of criticisms of Starfield, like many criticisms of Starfield, and I think Baldur's Gate 3, from the looks of it, is a much better game than you finished it. Yes, Aeronaut finished another shot for Star Wars video, everyone. We're doing a big Star Wars video, and Aeronaut's currently working on the animation. Hell yes. Heart to you, Aeronaut. But yeah, no, going back to the discussion we were just having, like, I think Baldur's Gate 3 is a much better game than Starfield. I have criticisms of Starfield. That being said, I'm still playing it just because, like, my nostalgia brain, like, it very much evokes for me that same, like, feeling of, like, Oblivion, Elder Scrolls Oblivion, Skyrim, Fallout 3, Fallout New Vegas, which, like, I understand now, going back to those games, New Vegas excluded, but going back to those games, like, I see the Bethesda problem in those games, but I still have a nostalgia for them. And so it's like Starfield touches that nostalgia, and because I'm so busy lately, I don't really have time to get into like a whole new thing. Like Baldur's Gate 3 is like this whole thing that's like completely new kind of system. It's very complicated, and I do want to play that at some level, but it's like, it's just easier for me right now when I'm like relaxing, because video games are how I relax. It's just like, let me play something familiar. It's a little easier. It's a little easier for me to sort of relax and chill with that. So, but yeah, but that being said, oh god, yeah, I mean, I don't want to talk. See, the whole pronoun thing that the one dude, Heels Babyface, got all pissy about, like, it's the pronouns. I mean, you know, that goes to like this thing that I've been feeling lately. It's like, there's been so much of this bullshit happening with like, oh, we're getting upset at pronouns, we're getting upset at like all of this nonsense, and it's very frustrating to like have that be the conversation, because like those, how do I explain this? There's been part of me that has like been wanting to respond to that sort of stuff. Like there was even like that other meme that was going around, it's like conservative games that are like not really conservative games, that were like, you know, like BioShock was on there, Metal Gear Solid was on there, a bunch of others were on there. It's like these aren't aren't conservative games. There might be conservative elements to them, but the message is ultimately very progressive, and usually it just boils down to you get to be a dude doing aesthetically, cool things. Like, Metal Gear Solid with Raiden getting to cut people up and things like that. It's like they just see the aesthetics of power and dude being strongman and not the actual politics behind something like Metal Gear Solid. Anyways, the problem is, it's just like I've been trying to like work on videos that I want to be hopeful, and those videos cause me a lot of anxiety because there's just a lot of work to be done for them. And it's like I could make a video about like, let's just shit on Heel's babyface and his pronoun bullshit, or the other things. And it's not, and don't get me wrong, I think those videos are important. I'm not knocking anyone who does those. Like, I think Noah Samson, I think today just released a video about like Heel's babyface and all that nonsense bullshit about pronoun stuff, and I think it was a very good video. But for me, it's just like I'm at a point in my writing that it's just like I just don't have any energy for that stuff anymore, And it just sucks because it's like I know that that's algorithm friendly stuff. It's like I could make a video about that, but it's like I just don't want to. I'm just tired of responding to bullshit, because having them dictate the conversation is frustrating. It's like I don't want the conversation around Starfield to be about pronouns, right? Oh, look, there's pronouns in it. Whoop-de-fucking-do. Let's talk about how the game actually frames gender and actually thinks about gender. Because there's a lot to talk about there. There's a lot to discuss in terms of like the very like non-gendered way the game presents stuff. Like for example, one of the things that gets me in Starfield that like is interesting to me is like I chose my character to have they them pronouns, right? And every time I go into these places, everyone respects my non-binary pronouns, but they never ask. And so it's sort of like, why does everyone know what my pronouns are in this world? Like that's set up. And it's like, it's just like a very like thin veneer of like, there's just like, we're not going to even talk about it. And it's just like this game is talking about like capitalism. Like it's supposedly a very capitalist run amok kind of society in some senses. And there's a very militaristic aspects of things. And yet we never like talk about the way these systems like define people or use people. Like it's very surface level. Like one of the characters you meet in the game is like is this company, and you have this argument with this with the one of the capitalists running this like criminal organization, not running a corporation on a criminal underground society. And I know I'm missing a few super chats, so I'll make sure I get to them. But it's like you talk to this CEO character, and she's just like, yeah, I don't really care. I just view everyone as family, and I don't care about the poor of the society, but I care about them. They work for my family, but I'm not going to pay them enough. And I'm like, that's interesting. But like when you go out into like the that's just kind of where it stops, and it doesn't really talk about like how that actually functions within the world that you're in. And so it's like a very surface level discussion on that stuff. And so it's sort of like, yeah, pronouns are in it. We can choose our pronouns, but what is that saying about the world that you've created? And it is very clear to me that Bethesda doesn't really do that world building aspect that like something like New Vegas did so well. Like New Vegas maybe didn't talk about gender as much, though there is some aspects of stuff where it does talk about gender, but it very much understood like how to create a game where like all of these things sort of like interweave with each other, and there's no clear like this is right, this is wrong, like morality bullshit, but a much more ambiguous discussion of how all these systems interact with each other and come into conflict with each other. So yeah, Starfield, I had like, it's just like, I'd rather have that conversation about Starfield rather than like, oh look, you can use pronouns in the game. So yeah. Yeah. All right, let me just quick get some super chats. I know I missed some super chats here. Stay Hum 10 hard to use says, how many kids does Picard have? Is Jack Crusher dead? By the way, love your Picard season 3 review. Well, I won't get too much into that because it's I don't want to talk too much about live action Star Trek stuff outside of like reviews and analysis. But I believe it just has one technically, unless you count like the inner light bullshit. But yeah, I believe he just technically has one, and Jack Crusher isn't dead. So, Carlisle the Cinephile, heart to you. If and when you play Baldur's Gate 3, I look forward to seeing who you end up simping for. This is probably the thirstiest game I've ever played in my life. I know, that's why I'm very excited for it. I do want to play Baldur's Gate 3 a lot. I will get to it. I do need to play, one of the games I also want to play on stream is, because I will be able to talk about it as a game, is the Expanse game. They released, I think, the first episode of the Expanse game, starring my girl Drummer. Freaking love Drummer, my polyamorous queer queen. I adore her so much, and so the game is focused on her as a character, and I want to play it. It's a Telltale style game that I'm very pumped to play, and they got the actual actress from the show to be able to do that. So it'd be nice to be able to talk about the Expanse in a video game context. So that'll be, I'm very excited about that. So I probably will play that on stream at some point in the near future, if people are interested in that. Oh, mighty Ginger Joe, heart to you. I adore you, my friend. Mwah. Sending you love too. Mwah, mwah, mwah. You are absolutely the best, my friend. I did play The Outer Worlds. Someone kept asking, Owen, you asked about if I played The Outer Worlds. I did play The Outer Worlds. I didn't play it all that much. I'm trying to remember how far. I didn't get very far, and I found it interesting. It was definitely better in terms of like discussing like different things. It felt a little. I think my problem with The Outer Worlds is it felt a little like quick at times, and a little surface level too. Not to say Obsidian, like, it just felt like, let me put it this way. I am very excited for Obsidian's Outer Worlds 2, because it seems like they'll have more time to be able to do stuff with it. And I feel like Outer Worlds was just trying to like do Fallout New Vegas, but like they just like had to put it out there because like they didn't have as much funding. Whereas Outer Worlds 2, now they have a lot more time and money to be able to make it. So I'm very excited to see what Outer Worlds 2 is going to be now that they have a little bit more time to be able to build it. But I did like Outer Worlds. I think it was better in a lot of aspects. So let's see. Jack McAllen, heart to you. You said a while back I was worrying about going to my sister's wedding. Just got back and it was awesome. Oh, I think I remember you talking about this. Parents and siblings use right name pronouns 100%, and they love my trans girlfriend. Apparently, Nimona hit my parents hard after 14 years. Oh, that Jack. Oh, Jack, I just saw that. That actually warms my heart very much. That's really awesome. Jack, I'm really glad for you, my friend. That is, mwah, mwah, mwah. Sending you all the love. That is amazing. I know we all, like, I'm very lucky that my family accepts me overall. There's a couple folks, but, you know, what are you going to do? But I know a lot of people struggle with family not accepting them being trans, or even if families trying to be trans, accepting, not getting there. And so to see stories of, like, people accepting you and seeing you and loving you, it warms my heart and makes me feel very good. And I'm so glad for you, Jack. It matters a lot, especially these days, to hear stories like that people are good and people do want to be affirming. So I'm so glad for you, Jack. And thank you so much for the super chat, by the way. I appreciate that. Let's see. CNC 97, heart to you. Oh yeah, Aeronok, you said yeah, they are doing an Outer Worlds too. So I'm excited to see what they do with it. CNC 97, heart to you, said this has always been an issue with Bethesda games, always surface level and watered down, especially their Fallout games losing their edges. Yeah, I mean, exactly. I mean, that's the problem. I mean, one of the biggest things too with Starfield, if we were gonna rant about that game, right, was like you have your main character, you have your main quest group, which is the Constellation group, which by the way is like very clearly based on European explorer clubs that very much had like colonialist vibes in the like, I think like the 1800s, 1700s, 1800s, I think it was about the era. And so like it's very much based on those like British, you know, explorer clubs, and they would like go into indigenous countries and do a lot of bullshit looking for like the lost gold of El Dorado nonsense sort of thing. And so you have this like very much based in like colonialist history main group, and then they come up to you and like one of the characters says, "We don't care what you do in your spare time. Just we're only focused on exploring stuff." And it's like this. It's like the game very much telling you, it's like, you don't need to worry about moral choices with this main quest. Just play the game. Just play the game and don't worry about your morality. And it's just like the game doesn't take into it like the whole like Starfield, it's an interesting discussion on like player agency and like how Starfield like thinks of player agency is like the whole goal with Starfield is like you should be able to do everything at any time whenever, and the game will bend to accommodate you, but within like but still allowing you to do everything. So like you can go and murder everybody and the game still like bends to accommodate you and acts as if none of that stuff has any sort of like real repercussions upon like or impacts the world that you exist within. And it's just this game just having this very much like the world doesn't change. The status quo will always kind of stay the same no matter what you do or how you interact within its worlds or its systems. And you can even get into that like that idea in terms of like how much of the game is like AI generated in terms of like you land on a planet and it's just this meaningless like endless expanse that you can like it's generated. You can go to so many planets and land on so many planets so you can land wherever. But when you do that, it just sort of like generates a random landscape and like populates with like random outposts and random whatever. And it doesn't really seem to have a directed ability to like think about its narratives in a very cohesive or, you know, ways where it bounces off of each other that like Obsidian did really well in New Vegas, and games like Baldur's Gate 3 looks like they do really well as well. And it's all about like, you know, this sort of like we want to give you as much like quantity is like the biggest director of games today. It's like we want to give you more stuff to do without it really having any directed meaning or intent behind it. Which is sad because like there's stuff in Starfield that I really like. Like there's cool ideas in Starfield and some of the stuff is fun. Like I'm hating on Starfield a lot right now, but there's stuff that I really like about it. And stuff I like the character, like I do. There's some characters I find really interesting, like Cora, who's like the child of one of the characters you meet. She's adorable. So like some of the interpersonal stuff is really fun. The corporate ladder, there's one faction that's like you climb the corporate ladder sort of thing and become like a corporate enforcer that I'm currently playing through. That is kind of fun because it is sort of like very funny, sort of like incisive sort of commentary on corporate culture. Ultimately, I don't think it's like really gonna say anything like demonstrable like taking down corporations or whatever, but it is an interesting sort of look at like corporate culture bullshit, like basically end up working for this like country, this like this society's Amazon, and so it's an interesting sort of thing. So there's this stuff about Starfield that I enjoy, but ultimately it just sort of is indicative of a larger problem in terms of not just game design, but in terms of like art and capitalist art today. I mean, go and look at like a bunch of other big science fiction franchises and you just see that like they just want to put more out there rather than like actually thinking about what these stories are saying or trying to do. And so they just rely on aesthetic of these stories, ultimately kind of telling the same stories over and over again, but losing meaning, just relying on the tropes instead of the tropes being the guide to like telling more stories and sort of exploring those tropes and exploring those ideas. It just becomes the tropes themselves and becomes kind of meaningless and soul-sucking. Which, by the way, is what we're going to be talking about in our Star Wars video with Aronach and I, since that's going to be an analytical video. So yeah, I think it's an interesting sort of discussion about like art that just values quantity and rather than quality and telling an important, meaningful story. So. Yeah, exactly, Lewis. You said, like, compare something to, like, Morrowind for straight up telling you, you screwed everything up, go back. Exactly. It's like, everyone's dead now. You can't do anything, dang it. So, yeah, it's exactly. Surla, heart to you, by the way. He's probably just said your name, by the way. I incorrectly said, lots of love, Jesse. You mentioned wanting to play Mortal Kombat 1. What history have you with the series? It's been a hyperfixation for so much of my life. So, yeah, I really like, I don't have, like, a long, well, it kind of depends on what you consider long. So I played NetherRealms, right? It's NetherRealm. I played all of the games from the, what was it? The Mortal Kombat reboot that they did back in, what was it? 2012? Right? Because there's Mortal Kombat 1 that's coming out now. There was Mortal Kombat 11 or 10 last. Whatever it was, there was one for the PlayStation 3. There was the one for the PlayStation 3 that was like kind of the reboot one where Raiden like sent a message back in time and you sort of like replayed the story of the first 3 Mortal Kombat games condensed and with a little bit of like altered stuff in there. So I played that game and then played every Mortal Kombat game since, and the Injustice games, which, by the way, I am very excited for Mortal Kombat 1. I would have personally preferred Injustice 3 because I want to play with my DC boys and gals. That being said, I will say it is. I'm very excited for Mortal Kombat 1. So yeah, I played all of the games. I'm not very competitive in them. Like what I do with all of the games, I usually just play the story mode and then just mess around with it with friends and like do versus matches with friends in local multiplayer and stuff. So that was like, I had so many in college. I remember playing these PlayStation 3 Mortal Kombat over and over and over again. We did like the test your might games, or like the random ones where like would explode your heads off or whatever. We had so much fun with that over and over again. So yeah, I have a lot of fun with the Mortal Kombat games, but I by no means like like the biggest diehard fan, but I do enjoy the franchise quite a lot. I do enjoy, I have a lot of fun with it. So flawless victory. Were you even alive? No, I don't think I was alive when Mortal Kombat 1 came out. It was in the 80s, right? I believe Mortal Kombat 1 was in the 80s, so no, I don't think I was. What, might have been the 90s? When did Mortal Kombat 1 come out? I doubt I was alive. I believe it was in the 80s. No, 1992. So it was actually the year that the first game came out the year that I was born. So was I alive? I was barely 2 months old, because it came out in August 1992. So I was I was 2 months old when the original Mortal Kombat came out. 1895, Mitchell Edwards says. Yes, I remember when Mortal Kombat came out in 1895. But yeah, sorry, Nightmare. I didn't mean to make you feel old. Yeah, I mean, 3 squared. You said you haven't had much interest in science fiction. It's like, I can understand if not having much interest in science fiction because of like, some of the corporate interest stuff behind it and some of the very superficial stuff. But there's some great science fiction out there. You really need to find it. If you're even looking for like book stuff, there's some great like science fiction novels. Like I would recommend anything if you're looking for some great science fiction writing. Anything by Ursula K. Le Guin is great. Octavia Butler is great. N.K. Jemisin, I think, has done some science fiction. I've read more of her fantasy. But Octavia Butler is phenomenal and one of my favorite science fiction writers, along with Ursula K. Le Guin, who's also more of a fantasy writer, but she has done some great science fiction. I think those would be like some really good starting places for you if you're looking for like really good like starting places for science fiction. I would recommend Ursula K. Le Guin and Octavia Butler. I will say I enjoy Isaac Asimov too. He kind of fits the kind of way that I like the stories that I like. The only thing with Isaac Asimov that you have to understand is he is very much a man of his time. So a lot of his work is like the way he writes women is she tittered along boobily down the stairs. Like my oh God, I could feel the tightness of my clothing as I looked at her breasts, and I could not contain myself, and I hope she didn't notice that I was so distracted by her buxoming bosom as we were having a conversation about completely different things. Like that. That's kind of Isaac Asimov's writing when it comes to like to women, which is unfortunate. That being said, if you can look past that, I actually do really like Isaac Asimov quite a lot. But yeah, he does not write very deep women. Though, to be fair, there are a couple like the iRobot. There's like a scientist who is a woman character who is actually, again, for the time, decently well handled. There's still a little bit of sexism with how he writes her character, but still an interesting place to put a woman in a science fiction franchise around like, what was it, the 60s, 70s when he wrote those books. So I would recommend Asimov. Just come with the awareness of the sexism of the time. So let's see. Yeah, Asimov was every repressed nerd stereotype from the 50s. Yeah, Andrew Clegg, you are most certainly not wrong about that. Ooh, Anne McCaffrey. Yeah, didn't Anne McCaffrey write? Isn't she? I need to read that. Isn't she the one who wrote? What was it, Dragon Riders? The Dragon Riders series. I believe that's what it was. I haven't read her stuff, but I need to. Dragon Riders of Pern, that's what it was. Dragons of Pern. Yeah, I do want to read her stuff because I've heard of Dragon Riders of Pern. I just haven't had a chance to get around to reading it, but I do need to. Right now I'm reading because I haven't had a ton of time. I'm reading actually 2 books I'm rereading. Or, well, 1 book I'm reading for the first time. The second book I'm rereading is I'm rereading the Inheritance series from Christopher Paolini. Not the deepest fantasy novels. They were very, like, you know, standard fantasy novels for the time. But I really enjoyed them as a kid. But the reason I'm rereading them is Christopher Paolini is coming out with a book about Murtagh, the sort of anti-hero character from those books that I'm just like, I want to read that, even though, you know, I doubt it's going to be the most radical, groundbreaking fantasy I've ever read, but I do really like those books from being a kid, so I'm like, I'm curious to see what he's going to do with Murtagh. So I've just been, you know, since I've not had a lot of time to do a lot of reading lately, I've been like, I'll read something that's a little bit easier for me to read right now because I'm busy with a bunch of other stuff. So I'm going to read, so I've been reading that. In preparation for Murtagh. And then also I've been reading A Stitch in Time by Andrew Robinson, which is the book about the character of Garrick from Deep Space Nine that Andrew Robinson, the actor who played Garrick, wrote. And he did the audiobook for it. And oh my gosh, it is absolutely like a beautiful, beautiful story. I really like, I think he just like, it is talking about like how someone lives in a fascist system, and what it's like to like grow up within those and the competition mindsets and distrust it instills in you and how you sort of deprogram that through empathy. It's a really beautiful story and one of the, like, I think some of the best written Star Trek things ever. I would highly recommend it. Anywho, I'm gonna probably head out in a second, but I see one more super chat, but I need to head out in a minute because I actually have an interview to do in 10 minutes or so, so I want to rest my voice for a minute. Heart to You said, so Laura the Surly said, hope that didn't come across as gatekeepy, prove you're a real fan. Oh, no. Oh, Surly, by the way. Surly the Surly. You just wanted to hear your thoughts. Oh, by no means. I did not get you were coming across as gatekeepy by any means. Like, the way you come across gatekeeping is like if you had said like I'm not you didn't come across any you just said you were you had a hyperfixation and were excited that someone else was interested in the hyperfixation that you like. I get that very much because whenever I mention I generally assume like there are some people who will match my level of hyperfixation on certain franchises, right? But I generally assume most people don't. Like 90%, 95% of people, 99% of people probably do not reach my level of hyperfixation about Star Trek or whatever, right? And so I'm just excited to like talk to people about it. So I understood you. You're fine. There was absolutely zero sense of like you being a gatekeeper. I want to make sure you know that. It never did not come across that in the slightest. I never even got that vibe. So, all right, everybody. I love y'all. Take care. I hope you all take care of yourselves. Sending you some love. Mwah. I am going to head out to do an interview for this video with the wonderful Elliot Sang, who you all should go. In fact, I will share his channel because we're going to be talking about some stuff. And if you have not been checking out Elliot Sang, he is a really great creator who I really adore. And I'm glad that there's a chance with my video to be able to talk to him about some stuff because I've wanted to connect with him for a while. So I'm going to share out his channel really, really quickly because I'm going to go prep for his channel. So go give Elliot a subscribe if you haven't checked out his stuff. I think he's really, really good. I think he does some really great work. So sending him some love and sending you all some love. And yes, Night Matt, I assume that is, don't hard to you because I don't know the politics necessarily of that, but I'm here to support Indigenous peoples of Australia, which sounds like that is, so I definitely support that. But I won't say too much because I don't know much about the politics of Australia at the moment. But heart to you, and thank you so much for the super chat, my friend. Mwah. Take care of all yourselves, and I will see you all in a little bit. Yeah, sending you love. Now I gotta figure out how to end the stream because it was all weird at the beginning. There we go. Okay. All right. Mwah.